So let's move on to a more, it's not really a happier story, but I have a little bit of a story to mention about this. Brian Wilson, as you guys probably know, passed away this last week. So that's not good news, but he had been sick for quite some time, apparently. Brian Wilson, the Beach Boys, who was the leader and chief songwriter, became rock's poet laureate of surf and sun innocence, but was also an embodiment of damaged genius through his struggles with mental illness and drugs. He died. He was 82. His family announced his death on Instagram, but did not say where or when he died or state the cause. In early 2024, the death of wife Melinda Wilson, business representatives from Mr. Wilson, were granted a conservatorship by a California state judge after they asserted that he had a major neurocognitive disorder and had been diagnosed with dementia. On mid-1960s hits like Surfin' USA and California Girls, as well as Fun, 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 the Beach Boys created a musical counterpart to the myth of Southern California as paradise, a soundtrack of cheerful harmonies and a boogie beat to accompany a lifestyle of youthful leisure. Cars, sex, and rolling waves were the only cares. So that was the first part of this story here, archived. And of course, here's the Pet Sounds cover. And what I wanted to mention about Brian Wilson here, though, was I thought that photo was kind of strange how that's kind of covered him up. This is the full picture here. Him in the control room giving someone instructions on what they should be doing. And note that particular studio that he's in looks an awful lot like the studio where I used to work, Ocean Way Recording, which at the time would not have been called that. It was United Recording back then in the 60s. But I wanted to mention it because I want to show you guys a little bit of a history kind of thing as to the place. I've mentioned it multiple times on this broadcast, but not really shown, I don't think, any pictures of this place that I worked for a number of years in Southern California. So this is Ocean Way Recording and the legacy of the studios that are part of the Ocean Way family of studios. So this is the kind of the back history of Ocean Way Recording. And it's a studio that many people throughout the world have heard of, even if you're not necessarily in the recording business or, music production, recording, if you're not in that business, you've likely still heard of the studio because so many massive, huge albums were recorded there. Here's a photo here of Bing Crosby with Bill Putnam. He was the guy who built one of the buildings. And then this guy right here is my former boss, Alan Sides, many years ago. And from the 70s, I would say, probably that picture. And this is talking about the move when Alan moved the studios over to Hollywood. And this is the front door. I've been in and out through those doors. 6050 Sunset Boulevard. I've been in and out through those doors thousands and thousands of times while I worked there. Here's a picture of Quincy Jones and Miles Davis. And then later on, they expanded to Ocean Way Nashville, which is not too far from where I'm sitting right now. They don't actually own Ocean Way Nashville anymore. It's owned by Belmont University, but it's still called Ocean Way Nashville. This is a kind of a wide shot of one of the studios. Looked very similar to that while I was there. This is actually one engineer's setup. One guy brought in about 90% of this gear, pretty much all of the gear on this side of the picture. The other gear over here was part of the actual room. So what I wanted to show you, though, was just kind of go back to the whole Brian Wilson thing. Right here, the room he's in. If I scroll down here and show you guys 6000 Sunset Boulevard, Studio 1, 2, and 3, right here. Studio 3 was a fairly famous room because it's where the Beach Boys, the Mamas and the Papas, Johnny Rivers, and the Fifth Dimension recorded their albums, as well as many other artists from the 60s. So you thought I was making that up about this picture? Nope. That's probably, I think, Studio 3 when I was there. So that is right here. So pretty interesting. And note, when I was there, I actually got to work with Johnny Rivers in that same exact studio. So I was in there helping, doing some assistant engineering and stuff back in those days. So, and then Record One, that's another one of the buildings that was part of the Ocean Wave family of studios, and that is where Michael Jackson recorded a couple of his albums, including Dangerous, and I was there during the making of Dangerous. Here's the Record One logo right here. And got to see and talk to Michael several times. Genuinely nice guy. He would come in all bandaged up sometimes after plastic surgeries and stuff, but he was a really nice guy. Anyway, there's a long history here of everything really that had to do with the studio. And you can see just a few of the album covers here of some of the albums that were made there. So it's a really neat studio, and many of you guys wouldn't know this, but while I was there, I actually got an album credit on Nat King Cole's daughter. You may remember her, right? Natalie Cole. When she did that duet where they took the recording of Nat King Cole singing and they sort of superimposed it with her voice as well. And it's called Unforgettable. So if you look at the credits for Unforgettable, my name is actually on that record. That's why. So anyway, I just thought I would point all that out. The whole thing here with Brian Wilson passing away, making the jump to hyperspace, as we say. It just really brought it up for me, and I just wanted to mention it to you guys just because I don't really share stuff like that very often, and thought you might be interested. Susan says, how fun would that be to work in a place like that, but it looks complicated? Yes, it was very complicated. Lots of buttons and knobs. Is that where MJ got the idea of the zombies in Thriller wearing bandages? No, that would have been way... I was around him way after that, so he was already in the midst of his various plastic surgeries, nose surgeries and stuff. And no, Thriller would have been way before that, so in the early 80s. So I don't really know. You know Doug's bad. Yes, he's bad. Good one. I like that. Anyways, yeah, I just wanted to mention all that just because it's something that I don't really talk about too much. I mention the studio oftentimes, and this is one of the beautiful rooms there. That's actually Studio B at Record One. But anyway, there are some good history things to read about there if you guys are interested, and we'll link to this on the Substack post as we move forward. And this one I just thought would bring this up only because my daughter happened to mention this album to me the other day, and I was not familiar with this woman, but I looked up this article and just had to see what was going on with it. She is apparently catching a lot of heat for her album cover. I won't show it just because, well, number one, it's not loading on this Instagram post. I won't really show it, I guess, but she's taking a lot of heat because she's actually attracted to men. And apparently that is not what the mainstream media wants to be promoted now. I mean, if she would have been attracted to women and had an album cover where she's doing something with another woman, it probably would have been 100% fine, and she probably would win a Grammy Award for it. But nope, apparently she's into men, and that is not acceptable. So I just thought that was pretty funny, just because we've come so far and yet done a complete 180 on everything these days. So anyway, yeah, this is Sabrina Carpenter. I have no idea who that even is, but anyways, I don't know. Just thought I would mention it just because she's getting a bad rap for actually liking men. That's pretty strange. That's the world we live in now.